Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Nye Hart, External Relations Coordinator at IEDC. I want to welcome you to our webinar, Showcasing Excellence in Your Community, What You Need to Know About IEDC's Excellence in Economic Development Awards. During this webinar, we will highlight the application and judging process while touching on what it takes to win. We also plan to save plenty of time for questions at the end, so feel free to ask away by typing your question into the message box. We will answer them all at the end of the webinar. Today, we have two highly resourceful presenters, Quentin L. Messer and Siobhan Smith. Quentin, a seasoned economic developer, is the president and CEO of the New Orleans Business Alliance, and Quentin serves as IEDC's Awards Advisory Committee Chair. Siobhan is the Executive Director of Operations at HQ Vancouver, where she works with her team to attract international companies to establish their head offices in British Columbia. Siobhan and her team took home last year's Best in Show Awards. To kick things off, here's Quentin L. Messer.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning to everyone. Want to thank everyone, and particularly the hard-working team at IEDC, particularly Nye Hart and everyone there. Really, I will run through quickly because Siobhan is really the person you should hear from. And by the way, I would be remiss if I didn't say something like "Go Canucks" for our friends out in Vancouver. The reason why we're doing this, and I'm honored to be the awards committee chair, is really this gives us an opportunity to celebrate the best in our industry. So we're really excited about that. And before I turn it over to Siobhan, I can tell you a personal vignette about how it's been very helpful to us at the New Orleans Business Alliance. As you can see on the slide, the winners will be recognized at our annual conference in Atlanta, September 30th through October 3rd. Here's the timeline. The early bird deadline for submitting entries is April 6th, so that gives you a little less than a month. The final deadline is May 11th. Judging happens in June, and then notifications in July and August, and obviously the award ceremony at the annual conference. I can only tell you that it is well worth the effort. I think you will find this a very helpful exercise overall as you think about messaging the value add of your respective programs and activities. So award category. Oops, I skipped a slide. Let me go back a slide here. What am I doing here? Hey, Nye, can you take me back to maybe slide 5? Thank you. So award categories. There are 34 categories within the 5 main groups below, as you can see them. And the numbers in the parentheses are the number of categories within each area. Promotional, which really has to do with sort of marketing, storytelling, internet and new media. Obviously, we need to catch up, and economic development needs to be aware of that. Programming, really the nuts and bolts of what we do is we try to connect more people to economic opportunity and make our places more economically secure. Partnerships, a big part of what we do is convening and facilitating conversations among multiple stakeholders, and then leadership and honorary. And that's really an opportunity for us to kind of brag on ourselves a bit. And I'll talk to you a little bit about how that was very helpful for us at the Business Alliance. And then go to the next slide. So there are 4 categories. As you can see, it's population less than 25,000, population between 25 and 200,000, population between 200,000 and 500,000, and then population greater than 500,000. We at the Business Alliance, we competed in the population between 200,000 and 500,000. And for each population category, you see gold, silver, and bronze. So really the way to think about this is very much the Olympics of economic development at IEDC. So, and the Best in Show, which Siobhan and her team at HQ Vancouver won, they were the top gun. They won everything as far as being recognized as the top entry out of all 25 categories. Oops. Apologies for being a little heavy-handed. One of the things that we're really excited about is adding a new category, economic equity and inclusion. And really this is, I think there's been a lot of ink has been spilled, and all of us are dealing with how do we make sure that more and more of our friends and neighbors participate in the economic growth and development that our organizations are day-to-day trying to achieve in our various communities. So they're looking for, IEDC is looking for programs and initiatives that go above and beyond the call of duty to promote economic equity and inclusion. Winning programs that promote economic equity and inclusion provide increased access to government and community resources for underserved or populations that have not quite fully participated in the economic growth that many of our communities have experienced. And the 3-year program requirement that's typically included for most categories has been reduced to 1 year for this category, because we really want to promote and support innovation in this important part of what we're doing and what we all endeavor to do in economic development. So the Innovation and Economic Development Week campaign, during Economic Development Week, May 7th through 12th, that's free. This is a separate judging criteria, and separate from the awards that I described earlier, and the deadline for that is June 1. So please, and one of the things that we are doing personally in New Orleans is we have a new mayor who will be taking office on May 7th. So we really are working very hard to position her as the Chief Economic Development Officer of New Orleans, and we really are leveraging National Economic Development Week to highlight our activities there. Next, we will talk briefly about eligibility. You can see it on the slide there. It's any organization with a qualifying project, promotions, and you see there about the program categories. One of the things I would encourage you, please do not hesitate to reach out to IEDC staff or to me personally or any other member of the awards committee for questions. Really, I can't compliment the IED staff enough for being willing to answer any and all questions, because we had quite a few of them last year as we were pretty aggressive here at the Business Alliance in applying in multiple categories. Next, it's pricing. As you can see there, I would encourage folks, particularly if you plan to submit a lot of across multiple categories. As you can see, there's quite a bit of savings there if you get in early, which you have almost a month. April 6th, the regular entries, as you can see there, you have a little over a month, and you can see the price differential. I really would encourage you. It is well worth the investment. Once I close, in fact, before I turn over to Siobhan, I'll just make a commercial for what we did at NOLA VA. We decided, because we were going through a mayoral transition, we really wanted to make sure our organization was institutionalized. So we went ahead, and not only did we become a designated accredited economic development organization, but we went pretty aggressively and tried to pursue a number of awards. And in fact, last year we had our board chair won the Chairman's Award. We had one of the 2 Young Economic Development Professionals of the Year. And then we, not to brag on ourselves, but we won 2 gold medals and 1 silver in multiple categories. And I cannot tell you, as we went out and talked to all the mayoral and city council candidates, it was very helpful for us to sort of be able to say, hey, look, we got third-party validation for what we did. So with that, I would turn it over to Siobian and let her take it away and tell you about how HQ Vancouver won Best in Show.
Thanks, Quentin and Nye, for inviting me to join you guys today. I'm Siobian, I'm with HQ Vancouver, and I'm going to spend up to and hopefully no more than 10 minutes sharing a bit about our experience at the IEDC Awards with you. So HQ Vancouver has been working to attract international head office into our province for the past 3 years, and we're thrilled to win a gold for our marketing piece last year at IEDC and the Best in Show. As a background to our submission to IEDC, we're a pretty small team, and we work with a network of partners who also work on investment promotion activities, and I think that's probably a common experience for most of us, that we work with a number of other actors in the same space. So this means for us and for many of us that there's a lot of marketing materials already in existence, but we felt that what was already out there didn't really portray the buzz of corporate growth in our city, and we wanted to try and capture that in a new and succinct marketing tool that showcased a lot of the new and exciting companies that were opening head offices here in Vancouver. So to do that, we launched a new campaign in March of 2017, last year, and we submitted our entries to IEDC at that point. I'm just trying to get the slides here to cooperate with me. So we produced our This Is My HQ profile cards. I'm not going to necessarily read here what's on the slide for you, but essentially each profile card has a corporate leader on it. It profiles a bit about their head office operation in BC, and there speaks to their motivation for why they decided to set up and to stay from a base here. So because we were launching this entirely new campaign with a different approach from previous efforts, we thought that going through the IEDC awards process would be a great opportunity to solicit some of that independent feedback from outside of our jurisdiction. And IEDC really provides a great platform to do that because it's got this international makeup, which you don't find in a lot of other organizations, which are nationally or state or province based. So overall, our goal for the profile cards was to create a really simple and aesthetically pleasing tool that didn't have the look and feel of a typical public sector or government marketing piece. There's really just a couple things I wanted to highlight about the profile cards, which might possibly be useful for you to consider as you develop your own tools. First, we took an approach that portrayed the private sector as our own voice. So the idea was to use the principle of like attracts like, where corporate leaders who already have significant offices here would speak about why they chose to locate here and to grow. So it was using their voice instead of our voice, because everyone knows we're paid to promote our own jurisdiction, and it's a little less credible when we say great things. Secondly, we simplified the message on each of the cards. So each company that's profiled illustrates one core facet of our value proposition that we believe is critical to success here. So it's either innovation, or the CEO would speak to the people, the talent, the ecosystem support, things like that, but only one item. So, really focusing on that simplicity. This way we were focused and we didn't overwhelm the reader by listing off all of our attributes in one small marketing piece. And finally, the phrase "This is my HQ" is repeated throughout the series of our promotion, which is meant to really drive ownership over the message, again, from the private sector. This really, again, removes us who are paid to promote the jurisdiction from the front line. In terms of transferability, one of our key goals was to ensure that our partners within this investment attraction ecosystem in BC would also be able to use our materials in their promotional efforts. So we thought it was really important that if we produce materials only under our own brand, that you inherently limit the ability of multipliers to use it. So within our marketing tools, we actually really minimize the use of our HQ Vancouver brand. And that allows our corporate partners, our service providers within the ecosystem to actually take our marketing tools with them when they go out to conferences and different events and use it as well. To enable that, so we kept our own brand profile minimal. We aligned the color scheme to complement our public sector partners so that we use the same color scheme that they use, but in different tones. We ensured that the references within our material was pretty generic. So when you're speaking about certain regions or towns or cities, that you don't use expressions that are very local and would only be contextual to somebody who lives within the jurisdiction. And we only produced about 40 of the cards, so that, you know, in the different sectors, so that when you're actually going after an investment or a potential investor, or you're going to a specific show, you could gather the relevant companies that support each area, and you would produce these materials, so print on a needs, you know, on a needs basis only. And this, again, this flexibility and not sort of mass producing them allowed us to also update the cards when statistics changed, and to make it more relevant for those who wanted to actually use our tools. In terms of pulling the effort together, we mixed things up by bringing on board a fresh marketing team that we hadn't used before. And in fact, we brought on people that didn't have public sector experience. Their main work with the company that we used, the creative team that we brought on, had been to promote really trendy things like new condominium complexes, craft beer, things like that. So they didn't actually have any investment attraction experience. And we found that that really brought a new perspective, a new voice, and new, you know, new ideas on design. And that really took us outside of our comfort zone. So we actually only sought board approval for the initial contract and then showed them a near finished product. It's a bit of a risky approach when you get that far down the line without having sort of corporate approvals, but it really paid off for us. I mentioned this, sorry, on the last slide, that we actually didn't do a lot of initial production and distribution. We provided a simple digital version, and then we actually, instead of going out and mass mailing or mass producing the cards, we sent them out through our partner networks. And again, because we'd limited our own branding on the products, it allowed our partners through our embassies and consulates abroad and around the world, it enabled them to actually use the materials in their own events and activities. What can an award do for you? Well, this was our first year in the competition, so we actually had no idea what to expect. The IEDC is one of the largest conferences that we've been to, and so it was a great experience to meet and get feedback with our peers. And we found this to be really one of the most important things. The recognition and the awards that we got at IEDC definitely provided a platform for us. So it allowed our leadership to actually endorse our efforts and issue a public congratulations, which was huge because it really validated the work that we did with our corporate leaders. So the companies that participated in our marketing materials that we were profiling, you know, received a lot of recognition through the awards process, and that in turn, you know, motivates them to work with us again and become brand ambassadors for our jurisdiction. So that was really important. That was a really important thing for us. In terms of completing the submission process, to be completely honest, this was a pretty challenging exercise for us, and not because of the requirements of IEDC, but really we had to be able to characterize what it was we were doing in a simple and concise manner. So the application process that IEDC has requires you to actually clearly articulate what are your goals in terms of what you're trying to achieve. And if you're like me and you talk a lot, it can be hard to actually make that a concise description. But frankly, once we did it for the IEDC process, we were actually able to use those award submission completion, you know, the text that we used, we actually included in our progress report to our board. So it was a great exercise to go through. Partnerships are really key. So for us, you don't actually have to have partners that contribute funds to the efforts and the pieces that you're submitting. They could be a supporting partner who provides input or who supports the development of your process or just plays a role. So we found it to be really important to get that broad support up front. And I think, you know, you really need to convey what's compelling about your submission. If you can't answer yourself what is really compelling and different about what you're doing and what you're submitting, then you might want to reconsider what you're putting in, because you need to be able to articulate what makes your tool stand out. And in terms of highlighting your submission, it could be something, sorry, the interesting part about your submission might not actually be something that the judges would see up front. It might be the production process that included a ton of actors that were very challenging to mobilize, or it could be the first time that somebody actually came to the table. There could be something that is not clearly visible. So it's really important in your description to ensure that you highlight what that unique attribute or interesting part of your submission is. So as I said, the process of winning, of course, was great, and it was a great tool that we were able to share really extensively through our social media networks. To date, I actually believe that this was our top viewed post on our social media channels, and I did check with our marketing officer, and it increased the volume to our online presence through social media over 200% in September and October, which is huge for us. So I can't say enough about the platform, again, that this provides for you. And you'll also receive a press release from IEDC, which we were able to channel through our multipliers, and we really got a lot of additional coverage through social media. And it really helps to validate your efforts. And when you're an organization that is consistently looking for a stable source of funding and stable support, anything you can do to validate that what you're doing means something, because economic development doesn't happen overnight, and it can be hard to show your funders the value of what you're doing. So this was a really fantastic, it's a really fantastic opportunity. And finally, this slide just shows an example of how you can use the tools in your own channels, in your local press, or on your social media platforms. We're fortunate enough to have our minister issue a congratulatory note and a press release, which was really super. It's something we never would have had if we didn't have the award to present to them. So really, overall, I have to say it was a fantastic experience to win an award, but it was also a huge opportunity for us to learn from the best of what our peers are doing and really identify and get some great ideas for what we can do this year and the next year and going on. And that's something I don't honestly believe you can get anywhere else. That's it from my side. I think it's back over to Quentin.
Well, thanks so much, Siobhan, really appreciate it. So now that you're ready to sign up, you want to know, how does the judging work? As you can see on the slide, I won't read all of it, but I participated last year, and I encourage everyone at some point in your economic development career, be a judge. It's not only a great way to give back to IEDC, but it's a great way to sort of learn and be able to sort of understand best practices. So the judging process is held in one day in DC. In June, it's one full day. You've got 50 judges. They're divided in teams. They represent all from across the country, various different sizes, including sizes across the various population criteria. And the judges have expertise. So these are not random people just walking in off the street. They understand what excellence looks like in each of these areas. And then the website and new media categories are reviewed online, off-site, from where the rest of the judging is ongoing. So what do judges look for? I think Siobhan was very clear about that, about the success that HQ Vancouver had. Really answer the questions that's stated and be very clear and sort of follow the guidelines that are presented. As you can see there, it is very much objective, and really as a former judge, we're really challenged to make sure that all the criteria was met. There's very rigorous and robust discussion, but as you can see, it's very important, and I think HQ Vancouver did this. What are the key characteristics for setting your entry apart? Is the purpose clear? Was it successful? Did you provide all the information? So these categories and what judges are looking for, it really is legitimately what's on the page here. There is no mystery about that. Oops. get a little heavy-handed. Nai, can you take me back one slide, please? Thanks. A complete entry. Please make special note of instructions. Please be very clear about the award categories for which you are submitting, your population category. Please submit by mail. I would encourage you, please apply early, the April 6th early deadline, and apply across multiple categories. The ultimate deadline is May 11th. That is pretty hard and fast, so please work on that. I think you'll find a very rewarding activity, and make sure that you complete all the information. As you can see, there's a website to help you, and also Nai and others are willing to address your questions. So with that, I think we have time for Q&A, and we look forward to addressing any questions you might have.
Thanks, Quentin. So I'll go ahead and jump into some of those questions, and you guys still have time to type some in if you can think of any. The first we have, I'll take this one. You noted that most categories have a 3-year requirement. Please give some examples. So we have a few categories that have a 3-year requirement. The only ones that do are the multi-year economic development program, business retention and expansion program of 3 years or more, entrepreneurship, neighborhood development, human capital, real estate development, and reuse. And that's also available on the website if you didn't catch it just now. The next question, the population category, is that the most recent official government census versus estimates? So that is, yes, it would be the most recent official government census, but it's not, it's more to what number of people the program itself serves. So not necessarily your entire community. If the program was just for a subset of your community, then the population category would be based on that. Do we have any more questions? I'll wait 2 to 3 more minutes and see if anyone has any more to type in there. And Quentin and Siobhan, if you guys had any other tidbits you thought you might want to share that might be helpful for our viewers, I'd love to hear from you as well.
Siobhan, do you want to go ahead and go first?
I'm trying to think. I feel like I've said everything about the process. I think it's important to try to, enter in multiple categories. I think last year when we submitted, we entered, I think, 5, and we felt like that was sufficient. We actually had additional items we could have entered, and I wish we did. Entering isn't necessarily about always winning, but the feedback process is important. And one of the things actually I was surprised to find is that the judges are part of that IEDC conference. And as they're walking around and as you're participating in the panels and the conferences, you actually have an opportunity to go up to them and speak to them about what you submitted and get some direct feedback. And I believe if you actually email IEDC or contact them after you have been notified whether you've won an award or not, you actually can solicit the feedback. And that's a really important thing. I'm not sure at any other process or any other event that exists where you can actually receive independent feedback on the work that you're doing. So I think that's a great opportunity.
Yeah, and from my standpoint, I would say ditto to everything that was just said. I cannot stress how beneficial it was, not only just, getting that third-party feedback for potential funders, but I also think it's a really good exercise for staff and sort of the culture of the organization. People really work hard, and many times the work of economic development can be kind of in the shadows. It's behind the scenes. The businesses are the story, or the politicians are the story. But it's always good every now and then to sort of, for staff morale, to sort of pat folks on the back and say, tremendous job. And I think, as Siobhan mentioned, the feedback is very helpful, not only on what happened in the past, but also in developing programming for the future. So I cannot stress it is well worth the financial as well as the time investment to apply in multiple categories, and we at the Business Alliance will be doing so again this year.
Thank you both. We have one more. Quentin, this is probably a good one for you. What is any opinion on what makes an individual award stand out?
An individual award. I think what was good for us was, as I look back, there were certain organizational objectives we had. So, for example, we really wanted to improve our new media capacity. So we nominated our program, Why NOLA campaign, and it got a silver. And we were very pleased, and that sort of validated the strength of what we were doing, directionally what we were trying to do. So I would say it's a good idea to apply in categories where you want to sort of pressure test whether your strategic direction is a good one. I always think it's a great idea to apply if you've got a really talented person on your team, particularly a younger professional, and you may not be able to compensate financially. I think, nominating them for Young Economic Development Professional of the Year, or nominating one of your board members who works hard for a civic leadership, I think it's a nice way to give people psychic compensation. So that would be my response to that question.
Thank you, Quentin. The early bird deadline is April 6th. Does that mean you need to receive it by April 6th in the U.S.? No, that is a postmarked deadline, so it just needs to be postmarked by April 6th for it to be considered. I see categories for general purpose website and special purpose website. How could we submit a new tool or program that we added as part of our existing website? That is a good question. I think what I need to do is take a closer look at what tool you're talking about, and I could make a recommendation for you if you'd shoot me an email.
And no, I would just jump in and again stress how open NI and the rest of the IEDC staff is to providing that real-time feedback on particular questions you may have with submissions. So please do not apply just because, well, I don't know which category. Go ahead, ask the question. That is not factor in any way the judge's evaluation. So please take advantages of the resources at IEDC.
Okay, thank you. Thanks everyone for joining. If you guys have any additional questions, please, like Quentin said, feel free to reach out to me here. I'm available via email, or you can give me a call, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you for attending. We hope you found the information useful. Please take a look at our upcoming webinars held this month and in April, and register online on our site today as they're filling up quickly. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your day.